Is David Beckham hoping to mend his relationship with son Brooklyn in 2026? The soccer icon posted a New Year's message to his eldest child amid their reported estrangement, sending love to Brooklyn.
One photo was all it took to restart a conversation that many people believed had already faded into the background, quietly replaced by newer headlines and fresher drama. When David Beckham shared an image that included his eldest son, Brooklyn, it immediately caught attention. Not because the image itself was emotional or dramatic, but because of what it represented in the context of everything that had come before it. People weren't expecting a follow-up, weren't expecting acknowledgement, and certainly weren't expecting a moment that subtly contradicted weeks of speculation. And yet, without warning or explanation, Brooklyn was suddenly back in frame, forcing everyone to stop and reassess what they thought they knew. The reaction was instant and far from casual. This wasn't the type of post people scroll past without thinking twice. Fans paused, reread captions, and mentally compared this image to earlier posts that had sparked so much discussion. The timing alone made the moment feel deliberate, almost calculated, as if it had been placed carefully into the ongoing narrative rather than shared spontaneously. People didn't just see a family photo, they saw a signal, and they immediately started asking what message was being sent beneath the surface.
David Beckham has a message for his son Brooklyn Beckham amid the rumored rift. Hours after posting a December 31st photo dump recapping 2025 that featured all the 26-year-old siblings, Romeo, Cruz, and Harper, and not Brooklyn, David shares throwback snaps of himself with each of his 4 children on his Instagram stories. In the caption of a black and white portrait of Brooklyn, the 50-year-old writes, "I love you all so much."
For weeks prior to this moment, social media had been filled with questions that refused to settle. Why did Brooklyn seem absent? Why were family moments that once felt routine suddenly missing a familiar face? And why had no one addressed it directly, even as speculation grew louder by the day? The lack of clarity allowed assumptions to flourish with each new post, or lack of one dash, adding fuel to an already growing fire of online theories. Earlier family recaps had already stirred conversation when Brooklyn wasn't included in ways people had come to expect over the years. This wasn't subtle enough to go unnoticed. Longtime followers caught it immediately, and once something like that is spotted, it spreads quickly across comment sections and fan pages. Screenshots were shared, timelines were compared, and people began constructing explanations before anyone involved had made a single public move. What made the situation feel heavier than usual was the Beckham family's long-standing public image. For years, they've been seen as a united front, navigating fame together while maintaining a sense of closeness. That consistency created expectations. So when a pattern appeared to break, even slightly, people assumed it had meaning. Whether that assumption was fair didn't matter. What mattered was how strongly it resonated with those watching. As time passed and no clarification arrived, the silence itself became part of the story. No interviews emerged to calm speculation. No captions addressed the growing chatter. The absence of communication created space for imagination. And online imagination moves quickly, often faster than facts. If you're following this closely, drop your thoughts in the comments and tap like, so this reaches more people watching this unfold. Some people believed the omission was simply an oversight, blown out of proportion by overly attentive fans. Others thought it was symbolic, reflecting a shift that had been happening privately for a long time. A few believed it pointed to deeper tension that had finally surfaced publicly. None of these ideas were confirmed, but confirmation wasn't necessary for them to gain traction. That's why the later photo landed with such force. It didn't arrive as a defensive response to criticism, and it didn't attempt to explain anything away. Instead, it quietly reintroduced Brooklyn into the visual narrative, almost as if to say nothing at all, just presence. And that alone was enough to change the conversation. To many viewers, the image felt like an olive branch, a subtle reassurance that whatever people thought was happening behind the scenes wasn't the full picture. To others, it felt more like image management than emotional resolution. And that split reaction kept the story alive, because the photo didn't answer questions. It invited interpretation.
Writing in his Insta stories December 20th, "My mom and dad would never unfollow their son. Let's get the facts right. They woke up blocked, as did I."
What followed next added an entirely new layer. Brooklyn didn't repost the photo. He didn't comment on it. He didn't acknowledge it publicly in any visible way. And in the world of celebrity culture, silence is rarely neutral. Brooklyn's own social media presence continued along the same path it had already been on, focused on his marriage, his personal projects, and the life he's building independently. That contrast stood out sharply. While one side appeared to extend a public gesture, the other remained quiet, leaving people to wonder whether the moment was shared or one-sided. For some viewers, Brooklyn's silence signaled emotional distance. For others, it reflected maturity and personal boundaries. And for many, it simply raised more questions than answers. When one side speaks publicly and the other stays silent, interpretation becomes unavoidable. Public families exist in a uniquely complicated space. Their private decisions often feel public simply because so much has been shared historically. When those patterns shift, audiences struggle to adjust their expectations.
With Nicola writing on Instagram alongside a series of pics, "We wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, filled with so much love, peace, and happiness."
Marriage often reshapes family dynamics in ways outsiders rarely see clearly. New responsibilities emerge, priorities shift, and time is divided differently. In Brooklyn's case, all of this has happened under constant observation, making even ordinary changes feel dramatic. Speculation involving Nicola has persisted, largely because people want a simple explanation for perceived change. Some believe her presence altered the family dynamic. Others argue that narrative is unfair and rooted in assumption rather than evidence. What remains clear is that none of these ideas have been confirmed by the people involved. Once a storyline takes hold online, it develops momentum regardless of facts. Every action becomes evidence, every silence becomes suspicious, and every post is analyzed for meaning beyond what's actually shown. What makes this situation especially compelling is how restrained everyone has been. There have been no emotional interviews, no public confrontations, and no dramatic statements. Instead, the story has unfolded through subtle shifts that people continue trying to decode. David and Victoria have long understood the power of image, but they've also maintained consistency in how they present their family. That's why the recent photo felt significant. It restored a familiar visual, even if it didn't address deeper questions that remain unanswered. Still, a single image can't erase weeks of speculation. It can redirect attention, but it can't provide closure. And closure is what audiences crave, especially when a story feels personal and unresolved. Brooklyn's lack of response keeps multiple interpretations alive. Perhaps reconciliation is happening privately. Perhaps boundaries are being respected. Or perhaps nothing dramatic ever happened at all. Each possibility feels plausible. Separating real family dynamics from public expectation is difficult when fame is involved. Growing up in the spotlight often comes with pressure to perform closeness, even as lives naturally evolve. Brooklyn's transition into adulthood has unfolded under constant scrutiny. Every decision has been observed, discussed, and judged. Choosing when to engage publicly may be his way of reclaiming control over a narrative that has followed him since childhood. From that perspective, silence isn't avoidance, it's intention. And that reframes the photo not as a fix, but as a moment of acknowledgement. Audiences, however, rarely accept ambiguity easily. They want clear answers, defined roles, and visible outcomes. When those aren't provided, curiosity turns into speculation, and speculation turns into belief. That's why reactions to the photo were so divided. Some fans felt relief, others felt skepticism, and many felt more curious than ever. What keeps this situation circulating is the absence of resolution. There's no confirmed conflict and no confirmed reconciliation, just shifting signals that continue to invite analysis. In many ways, the photo accomplished exactly what it needed to do. It reframed the conversation without confronting it directly. It reminded people that relationships don't always follow the narratives imposed on them. At the same time, it reinforced how powerful subtle gestures can be in a world driven by visibility. One image was enough to reignite weeks of discussion. Whether more visible family moments follow or things return to quiet remains to be seen. Each outcome would fuel a different interpretation. Until then, the story remains open. A reminder that not every family moment comes with an explanation. The real takeaway isn't about choosing sides. It's about how fame reshapes perception. This photo didn't end the conversation. it extended it. If you've been following this situation, you've likely formed your own interpretation by now. So the question remains, was this photo a genuine step toward reconnection, a quiet response to public pressure, or simply a moment taken out of context? If you want more in-depth, thoughtful breakdowns like this as these stories continue to unfold, make sure to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.